would you describe the state of the world today?
The state of the world is how it's always been, and that is that it's moving along exactly as it was written to be, meaning that the geometry and movement of all bodies, including the celestial bodies and the bodies, were all written to do exactly what they have been doing and are doing and will do up to their completion to a structure, a completed structure.
And what would you suggest is doing the writing? Would you say that there is a supreme intelligence? And if there is a supreme intelligence, how would you describe what that is?
There is a supreme intelligence that we reside within, and that is what people refer to as the torus. And my understanding of the torus is that it's what understood as Metatron's cube oscillating. That its bodies within it, the structures within it, the geometrical structures within it that are separate and yet interconnected, and their oscillation together is the motion of the torus, the body motion of the torus. And we are within that, doing our part to contribute to its development.
What do all these geometrical figures within Metatron's cube, what do they represent?
Well, I don't even like using the word Metatron's cube because it can take people's idea of it in the wrong direction and trying to view something that isn't what the image represents it to be as what it really is. In other words, the geometrical figures that are the 5 elements that make up Metatron's cube, being air, in this order too, fire, earth, air, ether, and water, in that order of singularity to conductivity to expansion. They are the structures within the torus that make it what it is, that hold it as a singular form and make it develop. And for us here on Earth, our interpretations are, like I say, the 5 elements. For the torus itself, they are not those things, but those are our interpretations of those structures for us to develop through. We develop through the elements to combine with the torus as a whole, through the circumstances that those 5 elements create for us here on Earth.
So how do they relate, each element relate to each geometrical configuration?
Well, those geometrical configurations are what create those elements for our interpretation. In other words, the tetrahedron, which creates fire, that is the shape, or the alignment, we could also call it, to create fire, that we interpret as fire. And the hexahedron, or cube, is what we interpret here as earth, as the material of earth. And all 5 of them have a place individually and collectively and interconnectedly to create circumstance for us to develop us, our awareness, to develop awareness here on Earth for us to align back to the torus, bring back to the torus intelligence and energy for its wholeness.
Is there a physical manifestation of the torus itself in our physical view?
We are within it.
But what I mean is, how does the universe relate to the torus? Is the torus the black hole in the center of our galaxy, or is it?
No, our interpretation of it is this universe. The spiraling bodies that make up solar system, the spinning Earth, the spiraling galaxies, the universe whole, is from our vantage point on Earth an interpretation of the torus. The torus is a somersault. We experience it linearly, even though it's not linear in its somersault, as being the spiraling bodies around us that create our circumstance, that we are within. Our life on Earth is a life of spiraling bodies, that we're on one and we're surrounded by them. And that is our interpretation of the somersault of the torus. That is linear. We are having a linear interpretation of what is not linear.
And I imagine at the cellular level, the same thing's taking place.
On all levels, sure, yeah.
What is our relationship to the torus then? Are we it experiencing consciousness? What is our relationship to it? Are we just one little small part of it? Are we the eyes of it? Are we the experience of it?
We are an experience of it. We are the how would you put it? We are the densest experience of it. We are a fractionated experience of it. Therefore, we are denser because we are not the whole. The whole is not so densely refined as we are. And we are going through this densely refined experience to ingest from the infinite through its point. Well, I'll go back a bit here. The center point you're talking about, the black hole, that is our interpretation of the center of the torus, where it takes in the infinite through its center point and expands out from that towards infinity outward and back to infinity inward to a point. And the torus is that somersault of going outward and back inward to its center point. It's that tumble. And we interpret that as our black hole in our linear interpretation of it that pulls our depth. It creates our density, and because of that density, pulls us to our death too. Because we are not of the whole. We are a fractal piece of the whole. So therefore we have an expiry date, let's say, as the form we are.
So that's the creator of time.
Yes. Yes.
So let's go. We'll get back to that stuff in a second. But just as far as the earthly experience here, it seems like these are very conflicted times in every aspect of human endeavor. It seems like there's conflict and there's pressure. How do you explain that? How do you understand that?
Why is there pressure?
Well, not maybe why, but how do you understand why it seems like now is particularly intense?
Because the alignments that are happening for us as our experience on Earth is having us come back to the whole that created us as fractionated pieces. We are at the times where what it's been meant to accomplish has been accomplished, and we're bringing it back to the torus whole with the information that we've gathered.
So what was meant to be accomplished?
As I said earlier, awareness and information to take back to the whole of it's for the torus to sustain itself as an individual form in the void, which is a split personality, if you will, of expansion out to zero and in to a point. That paradox is a conflict in itself. So what it does is it creates circumstance, like the circumstance of Earth, to develop abilities to cope with that. The torus needs to cope with its experience and to sustain itself in that experience of paradox. And so we are in that conflicted environment to develop what it takes to hold space in that conflict. And we take back that information to the torus whole. The fractionated pieces that we are coming back to a whole to join the torus whole and contribute to it.
If you're saying that now is the time when it's all being pulled back to the whole, I think that's how you expressed it. Mm-hmm. It seems that these are the most conflicted times. They're very conflicted times, we'll say. So, is it just because that's the pressure putting on the select few that are actually the ones honing their awareness, or does it matter what the individual does?
It matters what the individual does, but as I said earlier, the individual is programmed to do exactly what we're doing. But they were meant to do, everyone, every single person, every single planet, every single singularity, be it celestial body or body on the Earth, is in a program to do exactly what it's doing. And that is, like I say, to bring back information of the void through the point, through singularities, to the whole that is expanding and contracting at the same time. And that conflict that is occurring for everybody is not being difficult for everybody. It's pulling some people together for the alignment, but the mass is not in alignment with it. So they are the ones that will suffer the consequences of not having that awareness to pull themselves to the whole. And that may come in many forms. It will come in cancer for some. It will come in mental difficulties. It's materializing in many ways right now on the earth for most people. And for some people, it is them pulling their awareness together in alignment with this, with the whole. So what may appear to be difficult times are for some, and for others are the opposite.
Or if they are difficult, maybe they're really honing times.
Exactly, yes. Exactly. Well, that's what I mean. They're expanding. People are finding that they're either expanding or that they're contracting right now. It's one or the other. And the ones that are expanding are doing it in greater amounts, and the ones that are contracting are more intense in that direction too.
So now, where does emotion fit into all this? Because it seems like emotion is what drives conflict, or if it doesn't drive it, it's definitely the human manifestation of that reaction to that.
It's the embodiment of it. Yes, it's the embodiment of it
So
for people.
what information does that provide to the torus? The emotional experience.
It is what makes the geometry occur between people. The emotional body is for being a conduit of alignment from one body to another, one person body to another. We are the only ones with an emotional experience like this. The planets don't have it. The animals don't have it. The plants don't have it. People have it because we are the ones that are aligning. We are a body of alignment of awareness to bring this interpretation back to the whole. So the emotional body has had all the experiences it has had in each individual, and they've all been different experiences because the alignment takes for diversity. For an expansive whole, you need a diverse parts. And that's what people's experiences have been for. And all the billions of people that have crossed this earth are for this body of awareness that I understand to be 144,000 people. They are the development of those 144,000 people. All the circumstances that have occurred on this planet have been for their development to come to this time, at this point, and align with each other to take awareness back to the whole.
So literally 144,000 people need to be consciously aware of each other and conscious of what their goal is?
Yes, and their alignment. That they're all boosting each other's place by their alignment, so that the body is more than just the sum of its parts, that it is a body of energy, all as one, from the different parts aligning, so that it can match up with the torus, which is quite a feat to do. An individual cannot do this. Not Jesus, not Buddha, Don Juan. None of these people have been able to do this on their own, or on their own. The alignment taking place for Earth to match up with that. It takes a body of energy much more than an individual can.
Free will. So obviously you're saying that humans don't have free will.
Well, yes, as I said earlier, everything is written. Yet at the same time, what was written is for the development of individuality, for individuals to hold their ground and yet connect with other individuals to produce a larger picture, to produce a vaster structure. So what may seem like, or what is lack of free will, at the same time is developing individuality and individuals for the alignment with other individuals, but with a distinct self. So, that's where the
paradox?
The paradox is, exactly, of calling it free will, and yet that's a misstatement too.
It's like there's personal development, but there's not free will.
Exactly. That's a good way to put it, yes. Yeah.
There's a a popular thing of saying how unimportant we are, how small we are compared to the cosmos. And in an infinite universe, obviously, we would appear to be nothing. But also in an infinite universe, I would imagine that everything is equal, whether it's something a billion miles across to something a few centimeters across. It has the same worth, which is either nothing or everything. So in a way, what you're suggesting is that we could view humanity as being a geometrical figure in itself. And particularly, I guess, these 144,000 are a geometrical figure that when aligned and when solid, when everything in place is solid, it creates a new alignment for humanity and for the torus itself?
It actually has us embody the torus whole. The whole idea is to take the individuals that align as the 144,000, the development of those specific points of reference that each individual is, and their diversities and their alignment as diversities is what actually brings us back to the torus whole. So they're one and the same ultimately. It's just a matter of alignment. It's all about alignment. And when alignment occurs, wholeness occurs. So it's really one and the same thing. It's just alignment. And bringing with that alignment, with those individual points of reference as a unit, to align back to the whole, brings back to the whole more energy, more intelligence, more all the things the torus needs to sustain itself in the void. The void is not an easy place to survive. It had to develop a very elaborate strategy and structure to retain a self within it. And that's what people call God.
So then the void and the torus are not the same thing.
The torus is the survival within the void. They are one and the same, but they are it's all paradox. Everything is paradox. It is, but it isn't. It's retaining a self where there is no self. It's making a structure where there is no structure.
Right. So obviously trying to understand something like that with a human brain is a little out of its league of understanding. I guess that's why it appears as a paradox.
Exactly. And yes and no, it's beyond understanding, because it is understandable. It just takes a certain set of reference points in your intelligence to be able to align to it. Right. That we don't normally are given. We're not normally given these reference points in what we're taught in our daily lives here. But they are teachable. That's the whole idea, to take awareness back there, to not just go lose it all and just be. There has to be a contribution of newness, and that means an awareness of what's going on. It's just, what are you being aware of and with what?
So let's get back to those reference points. What are those reference points that would help align us to understand our part in all of this?
Well, those aren't available to everybody. Those are available to the 144,000. And they're developing them as we speak. Each one is of those 144,000, developing their individual contribution to the whole. And they're doing it in their individual way. So there's not really a set teachings to do this. They are learning for themselves, these people. And everybody else is being pulled along. The new paradigm that is being talked about here is not for the whole, it is for the whole, but it's not for everybody to be able to conceive and be a part of, though everybody is feeling it or seeing it in one way or another. They're seeing changes in this world, and people have different interpretations of what those changes mean and represent. But it ultimately is 144,000 pulling themselves individually and together in alignment.
So for those 144,000, what reference points have you found for yourself that have aligned you with that?
Well, for myself, as I say, we're all built differently, and there's a whole area we could get into, which we can't right now with the time limit, that makes each person specifically who they are and their differences to each other. My personal makeup is of the large picture. My reference points are of the cube itself, because that's how I was built to perceive, to align with the cube directly. I cannot energetically align with it to to the impact that I need to have 144,000 people align with me to get to it, but I do have alignment enough to contribute that as a picture to the whole. My carrying that picture around contributes. And other people have their own contribution. Other people are more detailed, like they'll have this corner of the picture, or that line, that corner over here of the geometrical figure. Mine is a basic overall one without great detail. It is the detail in alignment that makes up that energy as a whole, as a huge energetic contribution.
So when you say that the cube is kind of your reference point, how does the experience of your understanding of what's going on here through that lens?
It is my geometrical connection to everything. Again, though, it isn't with the precision that the 144,000 will bring. It's with a more overall, I should say, vaguer experience of what I can see it and I can feel it and I can perceive it with all that I am, but not to the necessary detail and energy that it's going to take to bring everything back to the whole. So my contribution is the overall view, which I can help with the separate parts. I believe that my being helps bring the separate parts together because I have the overall view. But the separate parts are what make it distinct. I can't make it distinct on my own. I don't have the energy for it. But I do have the energy to see the whole in, shall we say, vague points, vague lines.
Has this always been true for you, or have you just become conscious of it, or did something shift for you to see things this way?
We are always who we are, and going back to an interpretation of, or the real interpretation of reincarnation, which means that we are developing the 144,000. All the billions that have come before have been that development. I have not been here before. You have not been here before. Reincarnation is not a matter of an individual having been here before. It's a matter of a line developing. My line, your line, the line of the 144,000 that are to be there. And mine has been a development of becoming aware of it over the course of all those lifetimes. And this lifetime is for me to put it all together, all that I've learned. And same with all the other 144,000. This lifetime is for them to put together all the teachings of their previous lives. So it's been a developing awareness through experience of past.
So how does that 144,000 break into archetypes? Do you have an idea of that?
That's a long one. That's not an easy answer, a quick answer. I understand there to be 12 types. The 144,000 is 144 is 12 times 12, or 12 times 12,000, I should say. And the 12 types that people aren't distinctly one. There are variations within that a person may have distinctly 2 or 3 that they align with to make them their piece. And then another person will have 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 even that maybe in some are not as distinct as the other one had of 2 or 3. You know what I'm saying? So that there's all these variations of 12,000 within each 12 type. And that is the alignment that is developing through the 144,000.
So it's more sophisticated than just saying this type is like this type is like
that. Oh
yes,
it's very elaborate. It's incredibly elaborate. I mean, yeah, it's actually, when I perceive it, when I really align with it, it's just mind-boggling and overwhelming. Actually, how amazing it is. I wish I could on my own experience that whole thing distinctly as the 144,000 it takes, but like I said, I don't have the energy to. But just my capabilities of aligning with it are amazing to me. What I can grasp of it, but my whole purpose now is in my life is to align with the 145,000, so I can experience that and go back to where we were created. So, and the clearer I get, the clearer I get with it, the more exciting it gets to me. The more closer I get to it, the more overwhelming it is.
The things, the universe that we see, the projection that we have of the world and the universe. Um, what is your understanding of that?
It is a linear interpretation of the torus, to put simply, from a fractionated perspective that we are. I'm a fraction. You're a fraction. Even the Earth is a fraction. The Sun is a fraction of the whole. And all those fractions together in alignment, in geometrical alignment, make up the whole. And humans, the 144,000 specifically, were to go through the experience of this linear interpretation of the universe from Earth's perspective, and go through the experience of that and develop the individuals for alignment to go back to that to the true interpretation of existence, which is the torus. Our interpretation of a spread out universe is just a fractal's interpretation.
And what's our relationship to the sun?
The sun is the sun, what one could call a projector for the torus to focus on there being an Earth. It's a portal, so that through that center point that all individual bodies are, including the sun, are created through that point, that individual point. That's what makes the individuality of the torus too. But being a fractalated or a fractionated interpretation of the whole has the sun be our gateway to the whole. It is like religion said Jesus, the Son, S-O-N, is actually the same as the S-U-N. Through Jesus, through the Son, we get to the kingdom of heaven. That's religion's interpretation of the truth. It is through the Son that we align with the greater torus, through its gateway of individuality.
So you're saying that because we can't sort of see dimensionally, we separate everything, and
Exactly.
instead of the experience of the sun, we project the image of it.
Exactly. Exactly.
So what is the sun in relation to the torus again?
It is our portal to its individuality. It is the energy source, the focus of energy source that we have, that projects us and that we project back to as a singularity, to align with the singularity of the torus. Its energy is its focus of energy of the torus is our gateway to it and it to us. It's a two-way mirror. The sun is a two-way mirror, but we just see what's our side of it. If you start seeing multidimensionally, you see the other side of it. And you see that it's actually a whole. It's not a body. It's a whole. And the whole, if you see through the whole, you see the whole, if you will. And so it's our gate. It's our gateway back to us and back away from us.
Let me just ask you about the concept of suffering. It seems like that's been human history in a way. I mean, at least that's recorded human history. Has that been vital towards the honing of individuality?
It has. Very, very, very necessary. And religion has been a big part of that too. Guilt. Guilt has been very big contributor to our individuality. Guilt made us go from just acting to seeing our actions personally, to taking them in personally as being important, and therefore creating a whole inner body of judgment and distinction of self because of that inner push on what we align with our outer world with, and what our behavior within that world. Even our thoughts, our feelings are judged. And guilt has been a huge part of that through religion. People look at that part of religion and see it as being the wrong, evil, bad thing about it, but it's been incredibly purposeful for our individuality, for our contraction into self with guilt. Guilt is a contracting feeling. So we take on a greater individual purpose by guilt, by that contraction. And that experience that we relate to the rest of the world, the geometry with the rest of the world, through that bigger development of self, of a more distinguished point of reference. And suffering is a part of that.
So it almost seems like that's another somewhat paradox in that you have to go through that, but and then let it go.
Exactly. Yeah. You have to define the self, then let the self go. First, you have to define it.
So that brings us to the concept of ego and I, and is it us or is it something else? What is ego? How would you describe what ego is?
It's simple. It's self. It's another aspect of self. Ego is that self that I'm talking about developing. I mean, guilt itself is an egotistical thing. Making yourself important, making your actions important, making anything you do important is ego. But it's an aspect very necessary for us to distinguish individualism and the individuals that will align to make the bigger alignment, to align with the whole.
A lot of people suggest that we have more than one body. I know that you have mentioned emotional body and you've mentioned the physical body. How do they relate to the being that we are as individuals?
They are aspects of a multidimensional existence. We just break them apart and call them separate bodies. But they're not really separate bodies. They're just alignments of the whole. We're not just a physical body. We're not just an emotional body. We're not just one simplified little individual being. We are a multi-layered awareness here, or a multi-layered structure here. And awareness is all of that. Awareness, getting to your question of awareness is all of that in alignment. And we, in our fractionated interpretation, have emotional body, a physical body, and all these, a mental body. And they talk of chakras, these separate chakras, and all these separate things. But they are, in fact, really just aspects of one, aspects of a whole, that we break apart necessarily to find our individual place for alignment with diversity.
So is the ultimate journey, is the journey of Jesus, the journey of Buddha, then to align all those things together?
Well, as I said, it takes 144,000 to do the true alignment. One individual can only hold up their part of it, and 144,000 are the individuals that are to hold up their parts of it. But it takes the whole body of them to truly align. The whole thing is to align with the torus whole, not to be just a fractionated piece within it. All those fractionated pieces within it have a purpose and are doing their purpose. Yet their purpose is to bring back to the whole, to come back to the whole, to being an experience of the whole, not just a fractionated piece. And nobody can do that with their own energy. There's nobody that can muster that kind of energy to do it alone. So when you say Jesus or Buddha or whoever, they're only a piece that needs to be aligned with other pieces to go back to the whole.
But what I was referring to was within each individual, the work that these 144,000 would have done over millennia of lifetimes. Right. Is the whole point to align the emotional body, the physical body, the mental body, to achieve the alignment with the whole? Is that the goal of each individual being on this planet? To align all those things?
Well, we'll go back to something we said earlier about distinguishing individuality. To distinguish an individual being, they have to align all those things to themselves as a clear unit of one. We have to, in ourselves, align all those things to be one, not to be separate, individual, physical, mental, that they have to be an individualized being amongst other individualized beings to go back to the structure whole. So yes, it's a matter of all those pieces coming together as one to make a distinguished individual. Going back again to choice. There's no choice other than to make yourself a distinguished individual. That is the most choice we get, is to whether we have that energy within us to pull that individual together. And it's all about energy. As it's about energy for the 144,000 being necessary amount of energy to get back to the torus soul, it's a matter of the individual having enough energy to be a part of that 144,000.
And how do you muster up your energy?
By living appropriately for it, not to waste it on many of the things that people waste it on. But then again, I'll go back further to what I said and say that everything was written to take exactly as it goes. It's not a matter of waste. It's a matter of what you've been written to do. If you are not written to be one of the 144,000, then you're not wasting anything because you were not written to be of that energy.
So do they benefit? Does the rest benefit from the alignment of the 144,000? Are we all one?
Yes, but those will not go back with awareness. They will go back to the structure. They will go back to being the structuring of it, not the awareness of the structuring of it. They will be like the steel rods of a building or something that doesn't know that they're a steel rod, which they, in another world other than Earth, can be a part of developing a self out of and become one, become an awareness of the whole. In other words, nothing is thrown away here. Nothing is lost. We are all the one. It's just for the 144,000 to distinguish themselves pushes the rest into oblivion in a way. And that oblivion has an opportunity to become aware in another incarnation.
So there's no end to awareness. It's just more and more levels of development.
The torus is infinite, meaning everything within it is infinite. And everything of form is within the torus. So, yes.
If you could give a personal message to the world, what would you say?
I would say, do whatever you do, no matter what I say. I would say that people are going to do whatever they're going to do, no matter what I say, because they've been programmed to do what they're going to do. But on top of that, I would say, if I could convince people of anything, it would be to relax and to understand that everything going on is just an amazing, beautiful experience of being, and to try to, not to try to do it, to capture that understanding as greatly as you can in any moment, and maybe especially in moments where you feel hopeless or purposeless, to grasp that understanding that this is an amazing experience. I don't know what else to say about that other than that.
Okay, Fabi's going to walk you through singing "Oh World."
Okay. No.
Oh,
Oh, oh world.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, oh world. World in a world. One around the sun.
Awesome.
Is that good enough?
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. Okay, well, I think that's a wrap.
All right.
You know, one thing I have noticed about what you do is you
What?
always look up.
Yes, I do.
To your left when you're thinking.
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
That's what people usually
I don't know why, but I do. I noticed that too.
Yeah.
Psychologists know. You look up to the left when you're thinking and to the right when you're lying. When you're
Oh.
making stuff up, people
Yeah.
look the other way, to the other corner.
Uh,
That's one way people know that people are lying.
uh.
I've heard.
I do it. You know what? I do it because I unfocus myself from anything
Yeah.
physical, and just let it out.
Yeah, it's like channeling. It's mesmerizing.
Yeah, exactly.
Mesmerizes that part of
Exactly.
the mind and lets the other part come out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It floods the tonal.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
I enjoyed this. This is fun. This is good for me. Okay.
Alrighty. Okay.
All right.
Okay. Talk to you later.
Bye for now.